Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Mosky here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. Now for this one we're going to head back out to the States, and this is actually the first American beer review that I've done for you since I came back from Germany. And this is my third review from this brewery in fact, and there will be 2 or 3 more from these guys too. They're always bringing out new beer, so I will always have new reviews to do from this brewery. So we're going to go to Chico, California once again and have a look at the Sierra Nevada Brewery, and this time we'll have a try of their Torpedo Extra IPA. And this is a very highly rated beer, both on Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, so it should be a really interesting one to try. I've never tried this one before in fact, so this is a completely, it's completely new to me as well. So as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery, tell you a little bit where the beer comes from and all of that sort of thing. And as always as well, the brewery website is in the video description there, along with the link to my other beer reviews from Sierra Nevada as well. But as I always say, if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, feel free to go on towards the second half of the video and you will catch that segment, and I'll also put the little box up here for you just to click there as well. So anyway, this company goes back to 1979 when it was founded by home brewers Ken Grossman and Paul Camusi, and they basically decided to expand their hobby into a fully fledged brewery. And this is, as I mentioned before, considered one of the pioneering craft breweries in the States. It's one of the oldest ones in fact, and of course the Anchor Brewery from California is another very famous one from the States as well. Now Ken Grossman actually learned to homebrew at a young age from the father of a close friend, and this hooked him on the art of brewing from a very young age. Now in 1972 he went on a cycling trip with some friends to the northeastern part of California, stopping in the town of Chico to visit some childhood friends who were enrolled at the California State University. And there he fell in love with the town and culture, and he actually decided to move to the city as well. So in 1976 Ken opened a home brew supply store named the Home Brew Shop, and he and fellow home brewer Paul Camusi got deeper into their craft brewing. Now in the late 1970s the choice of hops for brewers was actually rather poor, and Grossman decided to take things into his own hands and drove up to Yakima Valley in Washington to buy hops for himself, and he fell particularly in love with the Cascade hop, which was the foundation of the hop-forward Sierra Nevada beers that they're now famous for. Now in 1979 the pair actually founded a small-scale brewery, taking the name from Ken Grossman's love of hiking in the nearby Sierra Nevada mountains. So this is where the name Sierra Nevada comes from. But they created their first brewing equipment mainly out of recycled dairy equipment, and they actually made a lot of it themselves, and they finally completed it in the year 1980, and this was when they got their brewery up and running. Now Ken actually spent a lot of time ensuring that he could replicate the brewing processes exactly, and that same year the famous Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was actually born. Now in 1981 the pair brewed their first Celebration Ale, which is considered by many to be the benchmark of the American style IPAs. Now in 1983 Sierra Nevada opened their portfolio with 3 beers. This included the Pale Ale, the Porter and the Stout, and these are all still in the core range of beers today. And they also produced the 10% Bigfoot Ale, which is considered by many to be one of the first examples of extreme brewing, and it's actually a little bit of a cult classic now in American craft beer circles. In 1984 they purchased a new 100 barrel copper kettle from Germany, but they actually couldn't afford to install it for another 3 years, and so in 1987 they purchased the plot on the 20th Street in Chico that would house the 100 barrel kettle, and this location has been the home of the brewery ever since. And in 1989 they actually opened the doors to their now famous tap room on the site of the brewery as well. Hopefully I can get out to California and visit that at some point. I really need to go back to the west coast of America. But the company produced their first wet hop harvest ale in 1993, and that same year they hit the 100,000 barrel production mark, and that the brewery further expanded in 1997, unveiling a new 200 barrel Hupman brew house with the coppersmiths that produced the original kettle that they salvaged from Germany. And he was the one who actually made that was called out of retirement to produce these new ones for them. Now Paul Camusi actually retired in 1998, and he sold his share in the brewery to Ken Grossman, and then they added a 350 seater auditorium to the brewery site in the year 2000, and this hosts music events and a variety of different genres in fact. And they also built a beer research lab built to the exact scale dimensions of the main brew house, and this was completed in 2005 of course, and the intention here was to develop new recipes and improve their current brews as well, so they do a lot of experimental work, this brewery as well. And for this reason, they are in fact considered one of the premier brewers in terms of beer research and development in the United States. And it was in fact the findings in their brew lab that pointed them to switch from twist off to pry off bottle caps, such as and these actually provided better protection from oxidation. And this was something that they noted in their research in this lab that they built. Now, more recently in 2008, the brewery introduced a special event called Beer Camp, where the restaurant and bar owners from the local area come to the brewery for a hands-on experience, and this has since become a regular event. And 2009 saw the launch of their acclaimed Torpedo Extra IPA, this guy here, and this year they also did a collaboration beer with Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, who I believe are from Delaware, and they called this beer Life and Limb. And the company celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2010, and to celebrate they launched 4 collaboration beers, each brewed with a different brewer who helped launch the craft brewing renaissance in America. And these brewers were Fritz Maytag, Jack McAuliffe, Charlie Papazian, and also Fred Eckhard as well. So all of these 4 brewers in the States have had some really kind of groundbreaking stuff in the kind of boom in American craft brewing that's happened over the last 20 or 30 years. But over the next few years they launched some other beers. This included the Hoptimum, which is a whole cone IPA, the Ruthless Rye, which is a rye IPA, and in 2012 they also announced their plans to build a second brewery in Mills River in North Carolina to meet the growing demand for their beer. And interestingly, the brewery is actually powered by solar energy, and this has been the case since 2007, and they're very proud of their environmental policies in fact. But basically for this achievement of powering the brewery by solar energy, they actually won the award for that was called the Green Business of the Year from the US Environmental Protection Agency in 2010. And apparently 99.5% of their solid waste is diverted from landfill, and they use biodiesel in their delivery trucks as well, and they sell their excess grain from the malts to local cattle ranchers. So a very, very environmentally conscious company. They're actually replicating what the Germans do a lot. The Germans are very, very into this kind of environmental sustainability, but it's very good to see businesses doing that in fact. But they've had the same head brewer since the year 1983, when they were producing 25 to 30 barrels of beer per week, and this works out as about 13 to 1500 barrels of beer per year. But now the production is actually 780,000 barrels per annum, so that gives you an idea of how much this brewery's grown in about 34 years of existence. But just to list the other beers you can get from the brewery here: their core range includes the Pale Ale, the Porter, the Stout, the Torpedo Extra IPA, and the Kellerweis Hefeweizen. And there's a number of other beers, and you can check those out on the brewery website as well. There's the Hoptimum, the Bigfoot, a number of different seasonal beers for you. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, I've reviewed a couple of these beers for you before. I've reviewed the Pale Ale, the Porter, and also I think it was the Kellerweis as well. So this is my 4th beer review from the Sierra Nevada Brewery, and I do have a bottle of the Stout to review for you at a later date as well, and also one of the special beers. So keep an eye out for those. If you want to see more Sierra Nevada reviews, just subscribe to the channel and you will see them appear in the near future. But let's get this guy out and have a little go of the tasting now. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the art on this one. Most of these beers from Sierra Nevada have a similar style of artwork. In fact, I'll just wipe the condensation off the label there. As you can see, I think this is a hop field that you've got here in the Yakima Valley, or not Yakima Valley, sorry, near Sierra Nevada in the States. You can see it there. I think my light's just going a little bit funny. I'll just put that down there. As you can see there, it's actually quite a nice artwork. All of the artwork for these beers is quite standard. It's just different colours. I believe the Porter that I did for you had a sort of orangey colour, the Kellerweis was yellow, and the Pale Ale was a lighter sort of limey green colour. But this is a really, really nice looking beer. And as I said to you before, it's very, very highly rated. And I'll just read the little bit of the thing on the top here. It says, Sierra Nevada Torpedo Ale is a big American IPA, perfectly balanced yet full of flavour and aromas that highlight the complex citrus, pine and herbal character of the whole cone American hops. So a really, really interesting looking beer. As I say, very highly rated. I believe it's a 7.2% IPA. It's a 7.2% American IPA rather. It uses ale yeast and it's hopped with Magnum Crystal and Citra hops with 2-row pale and caramel malt. So it should be quite an interesting one for us to try. And this is one I've been interested in trying for quite a while. In fact, I should actually show you the bottle cap of this as well. The standard Sierra Nevada bottle cap. It just says Sierra Nevada on it. It says fresh seal cap, use bottle opener for this one, and each of the bottle caps are different colours, so if you collect your bottle caps like me, you will get a different colour from each beer. But let's get this guy open. Like I mentioned, a 7.2% American IPA. So let's pop this guy open. As you can see, a nice smoky opening here. A little bit of bubbles coming out of this guy at the start actually, but let's get it poured and see how we get on here. Just give the last little bit of sugar. Usually in the Sierra Nevada beers you do get a little bit of sedimentation, and that's one of the trademarks of this brewery as well. They like to leave a little bit of sedimentation in their beers so that they kind of mature over time and retain their flavour. But I'll just bring the light back up again so you can see this. But yeah, if I bring this beer up to you, as you can see, it's a really, really rich kind of pale golden amber coppery colour. In fact, it's a very, very nice, very attractive looking beer. In fact, you can see just a finger of nice kind of frothy white head, but it's a really, really bright kind of golden amber beer, this one. I'm just trying to fix the light so you can see this actually. But yeah, you can see really, really kind of bright coloured beer. If I put my fingers behind it, you can't really see through it, so really quite hazy beer in that sense, but that's what you'd expect with a little bit of sedimentation here. I can't really see much, and there's a little bit of carbonation just going up to the top of the glass there, but overall a very, very attractive and inviting looking American Pale Ale. So let's just give it a smell and see how we get on here. There's a lot of caramel malt in this one. That's the first thing I'm picking up, and you're getting a nice little bit of the kind of citrus and grapefruits that you expect from the American style Pale Ale as well. Yeah, very, very attractive one. I just stuck my nose in the foam there. But yeah, a lot of caramel malt in this one. You've got a nice little bit of kind of the citric and grapefruits that you expect from the American Pale Ales. Yeah, a lot of caramel and brown sugar really, and like I say, there's a nice little bit of floral character to the hops here, the kind of floral aromatic stuff that you would expect from the American Pale Ales. It does smell like a typical Pale Ale, but it has quite a nice sort of pungenty grapefruit and citra hop aroma here. But a really attractive looking one. I'll just give it a wee swirl and see if I can get anything more out of it. Yeah. Yeah, mainly it is really, it's quite a simple smelling beer, I would say. There's nothing so prominent about the aroma, but it's more the taste that we're interested in. So without further ado, let's give it a taste. Now, I can see why this guy has had quite a bit of fuss put over it. It's a nice, big, bitter American IPA. There's a really nice underlying of caramel malt in there, and it has that typical sort of piney resin in there. You don't smell that so much in the aroma, in fact. It is more of a kind of grapefruity aroma with a little bit of citra, but there's a lot of pine resin in the flavour with this guy. Yeah, it has a nice, it opens up with a nice kind of bitter bite from the kind of grapefruit and piney resin and stuff, and that piney resin is actually really, really quite prominent on the tongue. It's sticking into the aftertaste. But yeah, it has a nice, it's got a rich kind of caramel sweetness underlying this beer, but the main component of the flavour really is the kind of citrus and grapefruit flavours. These are coming in after quite a lot, and there's a hell of a lot of piney resin that's kind of underpinning that, and that is what's staying into the aftertaste. Very pungent piney resin with this beer, I would say, definitely. Yeah, really, really nice beer. In fact, like it's got a nice little bit of aromatic character in there as well, and this helps kind of aid the bitter character from the pine resin come out. And it's a really fruity beer. I can see why this APA is so fussed over, if you like. It is a very, very good beer. Yeah, really, really, I have to say, there's not much more you can say about this beer other than it's a fantastic American Pale Ale. You really need to give this guy a try if you haven't had the chance already. But yeah, as you drink it a little bit more, you start to pick up a little bit more of the caramel malt. The bitter character, the sort of bitter hoppy resins, are the most prominent part of the beer when you start it off. It opens up quite bitter with a good bit of that piney resin. But when you get into it a little bit more and your mouth kind of adjusts to it, you're picking up a lot more of the kind of caramel malts that are in this guy. And they actually balance the beer out very, very well. So when you take this beer in at the start, it's not quite the same beer when you're sort of moving towards the end of it here. But like I say, you've got a nice rich caramel sweetness in this one that's kind of balanced out by a really nice blast of citra and grapefruit flavours from the hops here. And you've got a nice, really underlying piney resin with this one, and it's got a nice little bit of aromatic character to it as well that kind of sort of brings out the sort of hoppy bitterness from those fruity flavours and from the pine resin that's in there as well. It's a really, really nice beer, this guy. I can see, like I've said, I can see why this beer has so much attention paid to it. In terms of the mouthfeel with this guy, I would say it's on the lighter side of mid-bodied. It's got an average carbonation. There's not so much to say about the carbonation with this one. It does have just a little bit of dry character, particularly in the aftertaste with the fruity flavours, and it's a little bit bitter on the finish as well, but that's what you'd expect from American Pale Ale. The American Pale Ales kind of pride themselves on this bitter character. Yeah, it does have a kind of sort of a residual bitter character to it, I would say. A slightly oily mouthfeel with this one. It is, in terms of an American Pale Ale, it's a little bit harder going than some of the other ones I've had. It's not the most easy drinking American Pale Ale, but that doesn't mean it's not good. This is a beer that you would want to sit and sip and enjoy the taste of. It's not as sessionable a beer as some of the other ones I've had, but it's a very, very nice tasting beer, and that's the most important thing. A lot of beers are designed for different things. Some are designed to be sessionable, and in my opinion this one is a little bit below sessionable, I would say. It's a little bit more of a tasting beer than a sessionable one. But the Sierra Nevada beers are all very tasty, and I think I've recommended that with all of my reviews that I've done from these guys before, that you want to just sit and sip them and enjoy the taste, because a lot of them actually are a little bit unique. Like the Kellerweis beer, I remember in that one it had all the flavour of a normal Hefeweizen, but it was a little bit lighter, and that one it was in fact a little bit more sessionable. But with this guy and the Pale Ale, you really want to just sit and enjoy the tastes from these guys. But the oily mouthfeel on this one, I would say, actually complements the malt part of the beer well, and it helps the sort of caramel malt flavours come out a little bit more. But I think they've got this guy spot on. As I've said quite a few times in this review now, I can see why this guy has such attention paid to it. It's a really, really beautiful beer, and you won't be disappointed with anything you try from the Sierra Nevada Brewery. So give this guy a try and see what you think of it. If you like the likes of the Founders All Day IPA or the Odell's Pale Ale and stuff like that, you will really enjoy this guy. So give it a try. If you've tried it already, let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. And I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. You've enjoyed my ramblings on this beer. This is another really, really good one. Check out the Sierra Nevada Brewery if you haven't tried it already. As I've said, one of the pioneering breweries from the United States. So give them a check out, see what you think, and as is usual with my beer reviews, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I'll catch you soon with another beer review. There's a lot of American beer reviews for you to come, a lot of Scottish beers as well. I've got a whole host of things that I need to get through over the next little while, but I'll catch you soon with another beer review. Cheers.